This is going to serve as a short tutorial on how to enter globe data once you have it collected. So this is assuming that you have a project developed, you have a research question, and you have now collected data and you want to get it uploaded to the cloud in Globe. And this can even help with how to collect data and what data to collect as you are developing your site and establishing all of that information beforehand. So what I'm going to be looking at is, now that I'm on the globe.gov website, I'm going to go under globe data. So the difference between do globe and globe data is do globe is going to be telling you all of the protocols, right? It's going to tell you the instruction manuals for each of the protocols that you would like to pursue while you are doing your projects. This is where you can find them by Earth sphere and choose from either the four spheres or Earth as a system. So looking at globe data, we're going to go under data entry and data entry desktop forms. So this will bring you to the desktop forms webpage, where you will then have your information. Again, assuming that you're logged in to your Globe account, you'll have your organization and sites all ready to go. If you don't have any sites yet, it'll just show your organization here. But for me, because we have a handful of them, just to show you what they look like once they are established. So once you have defined a site, you can look at them at your list. You have your latitude and longitude as well as elevation, and the site ID is just a number that Globe uses to reference your sites. So that doesn't really mean anything to you necessarily, but if you want to establish a new site, we'll go to add a site, and we'll also look at how to enter pseudo data or what have you as a practice. But this site name is important for you specifically, and it is required. So let's just say we have Welty Environmental Center test site 1. And because I didn't go out and choose a GPS location, I'm going to estimate my location using the map here. So you can drag that little cursor there. And I have an idea of a site that I want to establish, but haven't had the chance to yet. So I am going to see if I can find us here in Beloit, which it looks like we can. We're going to see if we can estimate where Big Hill Park is located. So I'm going to choose random spot. I'm guessing this rectangle is our observation deck, which it looks like it is. So I'm going to choose one that's at the bottom of the ski jump, essentially, which has a really good overview of the Rock River. All right, and then our elevation, I mean, we can't really estimate that with this map, but let's say it is 215. All right, and it'll assume that your source of coordinate data is other. If you use the map, you can also use GPS points and manually enter your latitude and longitude there. So once we get that done, it looks like our site definition is done. However, we need to go onto the left-hand side here and see which protocols we are applying to this site. So keep in mind that our site is encompassing all of the protocols that we are doing in that specific location. So let's say we want to compare atmosphere, and I'm really interested in hydrology. Okay, so with that in mind, each time you check a little box, it's going to auto enter these different categories or sections that you need to be able to enter. So with this in mind, a lot of the atmosphere stuff is not required. So we're just going to choose a single liquid filled, current temperature only, surface cover description not required, but a lot of hydrology is required. So let's say our body of water is the Rock River. Naming convention, we don't necessarily have to account for. Body of water, it's definitely fresh water because we're in Wisconsin. Body water source, we'll say river, if it's even an option. Here we go. And width of moving water now required, now required, now required. And once you have all of that filled out, you have your site created. And yay, we have a smiley face. So now all of this information is entered into Globe. So now we have a place to put our data. Okay, so we'll be able to go to our data entry home, and then we will be able to find, and unfortunately, these are not in alphabetical order in any way of, so it ends up being the order in which you create them. So we found our Welty Environmental Center test site 1. That's perfect. It has our lat, long, and elevation, just like all of the other sites. And we're able to use this plus button to drop down the atmosphere and the hydrology protocols, as we mentioned previously when we were defining our sites. So this is where we are able to enter our data. So let's say I have air temperature one day. So I took a thermometer and I held it out into the air for a set amount of time for it to acclimate to the air. And once the thermometer stopped changing, I was able to record a number. So I have that new observation, always new observation. Past observations, we'll see that in a second. That is for looking at data entry that has already been done in the past. So taking into account of the way in which we have our date and time recorded, we have our year first, 2023, and it'll yell at us until we get it right. So today is March 31st. And our hour and month or hour and minute will be in the 24-hour cycle, right? And so it is 4:01 p.m. Central Time, so that'll be 16:01. And the set condition, I guess, that they have for this is UTC, which is the universal time, sort of time zone, if you will. So you're able to compare Wisconsin to, say, Croatia or Paris or something along those lines. But we're not really doing that conversion because it can get a little complicated because of time zones and daylight saving and all of that. So we'll just choose local and then it'll do the conversion for us. So UTC, it's 21:01, and that'll be, comparable to anywhere in the world. So with air temperature one day, it's pretty simple. You just enter the current temperature. So it's 64 degrees outside, but this is in degrees Celsius, right? So we'll say that it is 12 degrees Celsius. And if we have any comments, it's cloudy with a chance of tornadoes. We're actually in a tornado watch right now in Racine County, where I am currently at. So then we will send that data. All right. So we have our smiley face at the end, which is great. That means that we didn't do anything incorrectly, right? Now, this is false data. I just made it up, right? So what we'll do at the very end, so Globe doesn't shoot back at us saying our satellites are saying something different, what did you do wrong? We're going to delete the entire site, right? But this is for the sake of example. So same as before, we'll go to data entry home. And we'll go back to our Welty Environmental Center test site 1. Now, with the past observations, we're able to go back and see, ooh, on March 31st, 2023, we have a recording of data. So then we're able to look at that 1 day's entry of data, which is great. All right, now looking at our hydrology, it's a little bit tricky. I should have chosen something a little bit easier, but for the sake of, complexity, it's good to look over some of the possible options. So let's say we wanted to compare the air temperature to nitrates or dissolved oxygen or something. That's integrated hydrology. All of those water quality things are encompassed within integrated hydrology. You'll be able to choose which ones you want to enter data for when we get to that point. So same as before, we'll just choose the same date and time for the sake of simplicity. And our water body state we'll say is normal. The Rock River isn't frozen, it's not dry, it's not flooded. Hopefully it's not dry, that would be concerning, but it's not flooded or unreachable. Cannot select a future time. Okay, well, I see. Okay, yes. All right. See, it's very user-friendly. It doesn't let you make mistakes, which is super great. All right, so this is kind of where you get to pick and choose what data you want to enter, right? You don't need to choose everything. They have the icons on the left side here, and they have a really nice key available for you for ease of simplicity. So let's say we wanted to compare air temperature to maybe, say, water temperature. That sounds like a really cool study. So let's look at water temperature and just enter a piece of information there. So are measured with an alcohol-filled thermometer that's likely similar to the type of thermometer that we use to measure the air temperature, right? So that's pretty simple. You measure the air, plop it in the water for the same amount of time. What's the temperature like? And we noticed, as we mentioned previously, our recording for air temperature in this instance was 15 degrees Celsius. Let's say for the sake of this exercise, our water temperature is -1. So it's pretty chilly, despite the warm air temperature that we observed. So with this, you're able to record multiple recordings. And it looks like, depending on the protocol, you might need to measure in either different distances from each other, just for some sort of replication, so you can take an average. So let's say we do 0.8 and 1.4. And it looks like we only need 3 temperature readings, which is absolutely fine. So with that, we have comments. This is false or fake data for an example. All right. And with that, we are able, same as before, to send our data. Hooray, smiley face. Same as before, what we can do just to double check and make sure that our data got entered correctly is we can check past observations. And look at there, that's our data that we just entered, and making sure that the numbers are the same as before. They are, so we are good to go. All right, so this can be done with any protocol, with any site that you make. Keep in mind too that you can edit your site and continue adding on protocols. Just make sure that you have the information available. Let's say you want to have soil moisture and compare that, or even soil temperature. Really, soil moisture and temperature is pretty simple. So let's just say, for the sake of what have you, we have a natural site. Surface cover is probably long grass, just knowing the area. And our canopy cover has canopy overhead. You can include pictures, which is super cool. And then what your data entry will look like is, so let's say we have our soil moisture, right? Same day, 0331, and we're gonna say 1601, so the computer doesn't get angry at us, right? So our soil state is probably going to be measurable, right? Because it's not frozen right now. If it is, you could say frozen water or frozen ground. Sometimes that happens, especially in the middle of wintertime, okay? So your drying method, depending on that, if you use an oven or if, say, you let it air dry for 3 days, let's say you did that, you would choose other. Average drying time, depending on how many hours or days you could estimate. So let's say you left it for 2 whole days, right? You were in class 12:30 p.m. on Monday, you checked it 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday. That's about 48 hours, right? So we'll do 48 hours, 0 minutes. And it doesn't have to be exact. You could round to maybe the nearest 15 minutes or 30 minutes or even an hour. I don't think it really matters that much, right? So let's say your measurement of wet soil is 30 grams. And your dry soil is 21 grams. Why not? All right. And it does the water weight for you, which is super cool. And your empty container weight, this is so you can tare what you end up weighing with the soil in the container. So you don't want to account for the container weight. So let's say our container, you're using, say, an empty cottage cheese container, and it weighs about 5 grams. All right, so it allows for you to measure the actual soil weight, not accounting for the container, which is great. And a lot of this measurement, you might want to do that math as you are measuring your soil. So that way you don't have to do it all in that moment, and you can actually check your work and make sure that the computer's not lying to you, right? So along these same lines, you have your container volume measurements. And with all of this, again, you can even look at this prior to even doing any data collection, just so you know which numbers Globe will be looking for as you enter it. So a lot of this looks like it's not required. So I'm actually going to skip this part and see what it does. If it yells at me, then we'll know for sure if it's required. New measurement is required. Okay, cool. Then it is required. All right, cool. So we'll say, for the sake of simplicity, we'll do, okay, volume measured, calculated values. Okay, cool. This is the test. Right. Oh no. So this is good. This is exactly what happens when you enter numbers that do not make logical sense, right? So obviously we have wet soil and dry soil. Our dry soil maximum is 21 grams, must be greater or equal to 30 grams. Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, that we are going to And obviously these numbers will make a lot more sense when you enter them after having actually done the protocol, right? But with all of my fudgy numbers, they like it, which is fine. So similar to before, we're able to double check our work, go to SMAP block pattern. And what's really cool about these, if you end up doing the same protocol multiple times within your site, you can star them. And with that star, you can go to the tippity top and find that your protocol is set as a bookmark. And then you can exit out when you're done using that for the semester or for the month. Okay. Past observations, similar to before, March 31st, 2023, 1601, which is 4 o'clock Central Time. Okay, and it looks like everything is good to go. All right. If you have any further questions, you can definitely contact me and we can get things figured out. But this is the gist of how data is collected using the protocols. You go under do globe to figure out the protocols. And then under globe data, you're able to enter your data in this way.